Well, it was bound to happen at some point. First loss of the year for Indiana. And of course, it comes on the road. And of course, it's because it's a bad shooting night. And of course, it's to a team like Minnesota. It just feels like Indiana went back to its old ways. And we're here to talk about it. Ian Plaskoff, Noah Gerkey, we welcome you back to the House of Hoosier podcast presented by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. 73 to 64, Minnesota beats Indiana, and it was UGLY ugly in Minneapolis.
It was bad. It was similar to what we've seen in years past, and this Minnesota team is very, very bad. Plain and simple, they're a bad basketball team. And Indiana played even worse than Minnesota did. It was your typical road game on the Big Ten. Obviously, these guys haven't played a whole bunch together. It's their first true road test we talked about earlier in the week, and it was bad.
I was broadcasting that game from the studio. Yeah, that's about right. I was broadcasting the game from the studio here in Bloomington for student radio, and I wanted to be done as soon as I got there. As soon as it was just bad.
That's understandable. The other night, I use this to sleep, by the way. This is going to represent me sleeping. The other night, I had a nightmare. And that nightmare was that the ghost of IU basketball past was going to come up and they were going to go on the road and put together a poor shooting performance and not hit free throws and just look a little bit off defensively and lose to a team like Minnesota. But I was like, no, I slept easy. This team's different. This team, they've played well. They got a different style. They're new and modern. And I took the sleeping mask off and realized that was last night. The nightmare came true. I It was so frustrating to watch during the contest. Everything that Indiana's done well this year completely changed as soon as they got on the road. The free throw shooting went down the drain. It seemed like the rotations on defense were just a step slow, where they haven't been at times this year. It just seemed like what they've been so good at this year, they just took a step back in. Everything outside the turnover department and turning other teams over, it was just a complete 180 from what we're used to seeing this season.
Well, the talk at the beginning of the year was that Indiana's pace and shooting and aggressiveness on defense would be able to outweigh some of the issues that this roster lacks in rebounding, in size, in defending the rim. Well, Big Ten play happens. And sure enough, the Big Ten is still a physical league, and Big Ten play on the road is difficult. And Indiana got out rebounded 40 to 25, 10 to 5 on the offensive glass. I mean, they forced 16 Minnesota turnovers and only turned the ball over 7 times, but shot 40% from the field, 8 of 27 from three, and 12 of 20 from the free throw line. And Minnesota wasn't great either. Minnesota shot under 50% from the field, 23 of 47. Minnesota was 8 of 21 from three and 19 of 27 from the free throw line and turned it over 16 times. But there was just no cohesion. Indiana did not have really any rhythm or any runs to come in this game. And the weaknesses overshadowed the strengths. And that, I should actually rephrase that. The lack of proficiency in the strengths outweighed the weaknesses. And that's a concern in my eyes.
You mentioned the offensive rebounds allowed. Minnesota had 14 second chance points. What really frustrated me is Indiana, I think, had one turnover in the second half, maybe zero. I think they only had one and they forced like seven Minnesota turnovers. And they didn't really do anything off of it. Like they had 22 points off turnovers, which is cool, but like you'd only turn it over once, and the offense was just staggering through that second half. They never really had a true identity almost throughout the entire part of the game. You would assume the first 8 minutes, you see how in Minnesota is guarding Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson, playing full denial and letting you go one on one in the paint. You figure that out. You figure a way to screen off the ball, get to the rim with your guards with Connerway and Enright, find a way to get in the lane, and they looked like they were trying to figure it out the entire game. There was at no point in the game where they looked comfortable on offense. They had that mini run when they were down, I think it was 11 or 12, like 8 minutes to go in the game, and they went on like a 9-0 run, a 7-0 run. That was the only time in the game they looked comfortable with Minnesota's defense. They just never got adjusted to what the Gophers threw at them.
And, when this game was relatively close at the end, when Indiana went on a little mini spurt, but Indiana finished the game 0 of 5 from the field and 1 of 7 from three. And yes, there were free throws happening during this time, but Minnesota didn't have a made field goal in the last 4+ minutes of the game. And in that span, Indiana went 1 for 7 overall, 0 of 5 in the last five. I mean, just the opportunity was there, and just shots just could not fall. And it wasn't like they were turning the ball over. It was just, you just can't buy a bucket.
Yeah, and the issue we talked about in the pregame episode was the foul trouble as well. And I think it kind of hurt them a little bit because Trent Sissy would have been a perfect matchup for the way that Minnesota was guarding. He can get to the rim, he can step out and hit a jump shot. He also rebounds better than almost anybody on the team in pure size for rebounding wise. And he picked up two fouls in the span of like 15 seconds into the contest. I get that you're a freshman, it's your first Big Ten road game. He had two fouls in 15 seconds of action, picked up his third not too far later.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Because the next, he had the foul on the cut and then one on the inbound too, didn't he?
Hmm. It was
That ruins the entire flow of your substitution because Tucker DeVries goes to the bench. You think, oh, he's got a chance to get some rest, figure it out. And DeVries picks up two fouls in the span of 2 seconds into the game. And now DeVries is rushed back out there. They tried putting Dorn in for a little bit. He looked like the game was really sped up for him, especially on the defensive end. He ended with three fouls. It just threw off the whole flow of things. Conroy had to go to the bench for an extended period of time. He was their best go-to scorer last night of just getting by guys and getting to the rim. Foul trouble became a lot bigger of an issue than we expected it to, but that was one of the keys to the game. It's Big Ten officiating, and that's what ended up hurting them, aside from the 60% from the line as well.
Yeah, foul trouble is something that worries me long term about this team. It's not big, it's not strong, but it's fast and it's aggressive. Sometimes that's to your strengths, and sometimes that's to your detriment. And in this game, that was to Indiana's detriment because foul trouble, as you said, disrupted everything. I mean, Trent Sisley had 3 fouls in a minute, 2 in 2 seconds. Um, it was so bad. Now, this is no shade on Alexa Ristic, but Alexa Ristic came into the game for the first time of his Indiana career and played what, like maybe 2 minutes, something like
Three
that.
minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes. He got back down in the paint, and had a bucket scored on him. He was a -4 in his 3 minutes. But like in your first true Big Ten road game, first true road game of the year, when you have to put Alexa Ristic in the first half, it, what do you do? Like the
Dorn,
foul trouble was that bad.
Dorn played 12 minutes and was minus 21. I know it's not plus minus isn't the end all be all stat, and a lot of that came towards the end of the contest. But when you're forced to play that type of your best offensive players are off the floor for foul trouble, your sense of identity, your best ball handler, they're off the floor. Everything's kind of just pieced together, and the team's making their first road game, and they're still a team that's pretty brand new to each other as well. It's a lot of plug and plays trying to figure it out. And like I said, Dorn was minus 21, Ristic was -4. And the stat that stood out to me is in the 5 minutes Connor Enright was off the floor, they were minus 16 as a team when Enright wasn't on the floor.
Enright was a +7. That's the highest plus minus of anybody on the team. A +7 in his 35 minutes. Um, yeah, he was fun. He was fun to watch. He was running all over the place. The effort was great. He pulled down rebounds when there were like four gold jerseys in the area down low. And he's really starting to blossom and find his role. And of the many things that aren't positive to take away from this game, the continued success of Connor Enright, not necessarily as a scorer, it's not his role, but as a team guy. He had 7 assists, 3 rebounds, a steal, and he was all over the place. So credit to him once more. There were three players in positive plus minus: Tucker DeVries, Reed Bailey, and Connor Enright. And DeVries was a +2, and I want to talk about this. When do you start to get concerned about Tucker DeVries getting out of the shooting slump? He was 3 of 13, 3 of 10 from three in this game.
Part of me is very concerned, but the other part of me doesn't think it's a shooting slump. I think it's a factor of taking bad shots leading into misses. he hasn't been necessarily face guarded like this. At least I can't remember that. Surely one of the mid majors face guarded him, but it was full denial. Him and Wilkerson, if they got a screen for him, the immediate defender switched off of them, did not let them catch the basketball. His first three of the game came in like the first 3 or 4 minutes. It's one of those fadeaway ones that he likes to hit, but it was right over a defender, ends up shooting it, I think, over the rim, hits the other side of the backboard. It's a factor of shooting bad shots. He's a good enough shooter that he's going to hunt his shot. He's going to look for his shot. When defenses are frustrating him and not letting him get those shots, and the offense is not finding a way to get him open, he's going to try to shoot his way into the game, shoot his way into having an impact, which is what good shooters do all the time. It's a little bit concerning that teams are starting to figure out how to guard him a little bit and that he's not going to necessarily beat you off the dribble. We can play a little bit stronger on his strong hand when he's going to shoot. I just think it's a factor of he took a lot of bad shots in the game.
Do you think part of that is because Lamar Wilkerson is also not shooting the ball well? So, I mean, when your top two guys that your team is built around are shooting, I mean, in this game they were 8 for 27 combined. Partly it's we can put more energy on both of them when they have the ball because you can kind of trust the other one may not make a shot as automatically as they may have before.
Yeah, Minnesota caught him at a good time in the middle of a shooting slump and not having to go on the road as well. And they're both similar players in the fact that if they catch it with any sort of space, they're going to put it up. So you put guys on them and face guard them and don't let them catch the basketball. And Minnesota was living with letting Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis have one-on-one with whoever was down there in the post, whether it was Crocker Johnson. Who else was down there? They had Grayson Grove down there for a little bit. They were totally fine with letting those two try to guard Sam Alexis and Reed Bailey on an island, and it worked. Connor Enright and Conaway were a little bit the ones who could make an impact, getting a ball screen and dropping a pass down or getting around the corner and dumping it down. But teams can just absolutely guard, especially if they're in a shooting slump. Shooters like to shoot their way out of slumps, and when you force bad shots, it's hard to get out of those jams.
Yeah, Sam Alexis was one of the few bright spots on looking down the score sheet. 10 points on 5 of 7 shooting. He was 0 of 1 from 3, 0 of 2 from the line. But you can kind of tell with Sam Alexis that playing at a higher level for a longer period of time is pretty evident. I know Conaway came from Troy, but still being a 6-year senior, you've seen everything. You played in the tournament as well. So him and Alexis, they were the two most efficient scorers of this game. Conaway 6 of 11, Alexis 5 of 7. Everybody else really struggled to find ways to get clean looks, but Alexis and Conaway were they looked more comfortable than the rest.
Alexis and Conaway were the only two that looked ready to play Big Ten basketball. And I don't mean it like in a bad way, but they were the only two that looked comfortable with the pace of play, comfortable with making the in-game adjustments to score on offense, comfortable defending at a high level. They were the only two, Enright as well. I guess I'll add Enright because he was very, very solid defensively and on the offensive end as well. Those three were the only three that looked ready for the pace of play of Big Ten basketball. Dorn looked sped up. Sisley looked sped up. Wilkerson and DeVries were just frustrated at themselves probably all night and how they were being guarded. Reed Bailey looked uncomfortable in the paint. They gave him plenty of one-on-one opportunities. He's coming from Davidson, where he was the guy and got the ball in his hands a whole bunch. He just looked uncomfortable with having to be the go-to guy again. Indiana had three guys on the floor who looked like they were comfortable playing Big Ten basketball.
Reed Bailey was 1 of 5 from the field. He had 4 personal fouls. Lamar Wilkerson was 5 of 14. He had 2 fouls. Tucker DeVries was 3 of 13. He had 2 fouls. And Nick Dorn, 0 of 1, 3 fouls. Trent Sisley, 1 of 3, 3 fouls. But you look at Sam Alexis, 10 points, 5 of 7 shooting, only 1 foul. Tayton Conaway had 4 personal fouls, but he was the anchor of the defense, so it's understandable guarding the ball. He was 6 of 11 for 18 points. And Connor Enright, 3 points, 1 of 1 from the field with 7 assists, and he had 3 fouls as well. You could tell. I mean, the numbers show as comfortable as they were, the fouls were different. It's not like Reed Bailey's four fouls were the same as Tatum Conaway's four fouls. Um, and Nick Dorn's three fouls were not the same as Connor Enright's three fouls. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Enright, Conaway, and Sam Alexis were the guys that really just were there ready to play. Um, and do I think that it's first Big Ten game jitters? I don't know, but it's possible.
So how many bench points Minnesota had last night? One singular bench point. And I say this because their initial big man, Crocker Johnson, I think his name was, he was in foul trouble. And they put in Grayson Grove, and then he got into foul trouble. And they put in Nehemiah Turner, and he got into foul trouble. They had so many guys playing because of foul trouble, and they only scored 1 point. They couldn't stop them. But Indiana didn't decide to go after the guys with foul trouble. Crocker Johnson picked up his fourth foul, I think, with like 11 minutes to go, 8 minutes to go, maybe. Grove had his fourth and like 15 minutes to go. That's when they put Turner in, and he just looked lost on the basketball court. And they stopped attacking. They drew those fouls on the bigs. They drew those fouls in the paint with Enright and Conaway attacking and Wilkerson going off back cuts and Alexis being aggressive on the boards. And they just stopped. The whole point of being aggressive and doing that is to get those guys into foul trouble, to make them play. They were playing down. They played 9 scholarship players yesterday. And Indiana did what they were supposed to do, got them into foul trouble, and then just stopped attacking what was working.
Yeah, Turner, Grove, and Crocker Johnson all had four fouls. And when Crocker Johnson had four fouls, after he got his fourth foul, that's when he looked his best at the end of the game. I mean, he picked it up. Grayson Grove made a fantastic play to block a Tucker DeVries dunk. Nehemiah Turner, to be frank, didn't really do much, but he was on the court to allow more time on the bench for Crocker Johnson and Grove. But you look at this Minnesota score sheet right here, and all five starters were in double figures for a team that only had two players averaging double figures. It was Cade Tyson who averaged 24 coming in, and Crocker Johnson who averaged 12, and everybody else did not average 10 or more points per game. But Langston Reynolds had 17 on 7-11 shooting. Isaac Osama had 15. He shot nine free throws. Bobby Durkin hit three threes and had 12 points. And yeah, Minnesota just had a good shooting night, I guess, with the start. Is it good? I don't know. From three, no. But
I didn't think they shot well from the field at all. Like
it's like they
Indiana
had better looks.
Indiana got out rebounded by 15. And if you realize that their best player, at least in the moment, was Crocker Johnson. Tyson had some nice plays down the stretch, and Durkin hit a crazy three. This guy's getting all their offensive production. Why is nobody on the bench? Hey, this guy's got 4 fouls. Like, go after him, go attack him, get him out of the game. It changes things tremendously with a guy like Grayson Grover, Nehemiah Turner in the game in the last stretch than a talented scorer like Crocker Johnson. Why was there no urgency to draw a fifth foul, to make him uncomfortable, have to defend you looser? I I don't know why there was a lack of urgency in not realizing that.
I think part of it was just you look at Indiana's shot selection as the game got later and later. It was just a lot of heaving three-pointers up and a lot of cutting to the basket without any aggressiveness and just no chance of getting a foul called. So part of it is that. And we don't really know the answer to the question of when does this team shoot too many threes because that's how this team is built. But maybe in this game, the answer might have been at the 22 mark of three-point attempts. They shot 27 of them. I don't know. But as Big Ten play goes on and these more physical, more, Big Ten style games continue, I mean, I think Penn State at home will be telling of where this team can, you know, it's kind of nice that they can gradually increase as they go through the Big Ten slate at the beginning. Now, sure, they did just lose to Minnesota, but Penn State's not a great opponent, and it's at home, so that'll be a good chance to bounce back. but like we still don't know like how good is this team? I don't know.
We'll also find out real soon, I believe, on Saturday with Louisville, who also just lost their first game of the season to Arkansas. So you get to play Minnesota. The numbers still like Indiana. Ken Palm still got him at 26, and I believe the net metric has him at 24. Whether that's the case of blowing out other competition and blowing out Marquette, putting it to Kansas State, the numbers still like Indiana, but obviously the eye test should not like Indiana as much as the computer numbers do.
Yeah, let's talk about Louisville a little bit. An 89 to 80 loss at number 25 Arkansas yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday. This is a really explosive basketball team. It won its first 7 games of the year and scored 100 points in 4 of those first 7. The lowest tally that Louisville has scored is 74 versus Cincinnati in a win, but they've gone 104, 106, 96, 106, 74, 87, 104, 89. So you can't risk or you can't afford another off shooting night if you're Indiana. It'll be in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I think tip is at 2:15
Yep.
um, on the day. It's going to be a day.
It's going to be a day, good or for worse, for a lot of Indiana fans. This could go really, really well or really, really bad if you think about it.
It will be a day to remember, however good or bad it ends up. I'm doing the double. It's going to be great. I'll be covering Indiana and Louisville at Gamebridge, getting there at like noon. After the game, make the walk over to Lucas Oil, cover the Big Ten championship game, probably get out of there at like 3 a.m., I would think. Maybe even later. I don't know. But it'll be all worth it. Um, I don't know. Are you going to be on site, Noah? At
I'll be on site for a basketball game, and I believe I'm going to the Big Ten Championship as a student ticket. So I should be in attendance for both of those. So it'll be a fun one. It'll be interesting. Louisville's a team that likes to shoot a bunch of threes. Indiana shoots a bunch of threes. So does Louisville. And they had by far their worst shooting night of the year. Last night they were 8 for 37. Ryan Conwell and Michael Brown were their two go-to scorers. And honestly, their best three-point shooters outside of Isaac McNeely, they were a combined 5 for 25 just between the two of them. They're an explosive offense. They put up a bunch of points. They had by far their worst shooting night. You could maybe even chalk that loss up to Arkansas because of a poor shooting night and a slow start that they got out to. This would be a fun test. This is not Marquette. This is not Kansas State, and it's certainly not Minnesota. This team is a lot further along in their first or second road game they dropped, but you best believe they're trying to make a statement as well as Indiana's also going to need one. Both teams coming off their first loss of the year. Going to see how both of them adjust, I guess.
This team is led by the 19 and a half points per game of Ryan Conwell, a former Indiana State Sycamore, former Xavier Musketeer, and former Pike High School Red Devil, I believe. Sounds right.
That does sound right.
He has 19 and a half points per game. Michael Brown Jr., 17.6 points per game for the true freshman. And Isaac McNeely, a former future Hoosier, 12.1 points per game. Actually, you got 2 of their top 3 scorers are former future Hoosiers.
Correct. Because Conwell was one, wasn't he?
Yeah, in the transfer portal.
He was one of the ones that a lot of people were looking out for. And then Louisville, I'm pretty sure, gave him a lot of money.
Former future Hoosier is a term I like to use for um, prospects or transfer portal ads that people say are going to go to Indiana and just do not.
Like
So,
Jalen Harrelson at Notre Dame.
yeah.
They just beat Mizzou. They looked good.
Yeah. Braylon Mullins, former future Hoosier, lighting it up for UConn.
Yeah, that
There
that
are a
one
bunch of them.
stings. He's good.
Yeah.
Even Flory Badunga when he ended up going back to Kansas. He's
Hmm.
our former future Hoosier that's kind of tearing it up right now.
You could pretty much say every 4 or 5 star prospect in the entire Midwest is a former future Hoosier.
At one point or another.
Yeah. Recruiting is weird. It really is. Anyways, Louisville. high-powered offense. They've got four guys shooting or scoring 10 points or more per game. They have six guys averaging eight or more points per game. As a team, they shoot 35% from three, 47% from the field. And this is the number six team in the country. Well, prior to the loss, they'll move down a little bit, but 7-1, first in the ACC right now. And yeah, a little scary. A little scary.
Just a little bit. They're quite explosive, and this is the one we kind of circled on the calendar at the beginning of the year. This and the trip to Lexington, which we'll also both be at. Exciting. That'll be awesome. Um, this is one of the ones you circle, and this is a test of a mile marker of how far along this team is in their journey. If the season's 162 miles, how many miles along is Indiana? This is your mile marker in Indianapolis. I'm assuming it's going to be a pretty pro IU crowd with what all is going on in Indianapolis that day, although Louisville travels well. They've got a pretty big fan base. I'm excited to see how they respond after a dud of a performance on the road. It's going to be a pro IU crowd against a very, very talented team in what kind of feels like a March Madness type of game in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. And this is the best opponent Indiana has seen up to this point by a landslide. I mean, there's no question about it. Um, and we'll see. How does Darren DeVries do returning to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, or this team do returning to Gainbridge Fieldhouse in terms of depth perception, shooting on the road, shooting away from home, whatever you want to call it. Um, how does this team fare against a highly touted, highly explosive offensive team from a different conference that plays with a different play style, especially coming just off a Big Ten game? Um, Now, do I think back to like the Baylor exhibition, kind of like this, where it's a different style, different conference, usually a good team. And Baylor, I don't know how they're doing this year, um, but I think of this like it'll be interesting. Like I don't know how they'll fare, and I didn't know how they would fare against Baylor, um, and that ended up going all right. So Louisville's obviously better than Baylor by a
Baylor
mile.
is 6-1, with their only loss being to St. John's. They have beaten Creighton, San Diego State, Sacramento State, uh, University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, Washington, and Tarleton State.
Couple of good wins in there.
San Diego State and Creighton are two pretty solid wins for them.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the different styles, and sometimes that can benefit Indiana. Maybe the way they play rubs off on Louisville a different way, and they somehow get the right matchup. It's always interesting, and it's always fun, especially towards March when you watch even like the mid-major teams like Colgate, who shoot a whole bunch of threes, and you see them play against like an Auburn who plays such a fast style, and how styles match. The issue is, I think Indiana and Louisville play a very similar style of basketball from the very little that I've watched. They like to get out and run. They like to shoot the three. They're both not great rebounding teams. They really rely on the offensive production. And that's why I'm intrigued to see Indiana's going to have a running mate. It's going to be a track meet, probably first to 90 points wins. And if it's a defensive battle, first to like 75.
For everybody going to this game in Indianapolis, be sure to take advantage of all the stuff going on down there. Everything's connected. And there's so much. There are fan fests everywhere. There's IU stuff everywhere that, get your free stuff, enjoy yourself, experience a one-of-a-kind day in Indianapolis if you're going. I certainly can't wait to see, from a media perspective, what this weekend is going to look like. And Noah, I'm sure you feel the same, right?
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued, especially I'm interested to see how the vibe Louisville or Indianapolis is for the basketball game leading up to the Big Ten championship. I'm sure as soon as the basketball game is over, the stretch right before the game is going to be filled with energy, all the anticipation. What's it going to be like at noon when we get there? Pre-game shoot around. What's the energy going to be like around Indianapolis? That's what I'm most excited about, and I really can't wait. This is a once in a lifetime spot. Maybe Coach Signay is going to have this thing rolling. It'll be more than just once in a lifetime, at least for right now. It's once in every IU fan's lifetime to this point in time, and I'm quite intrigued.
And be sure to take it all in. It's going to be special. Let us know all your thoughts about this basketball game. You could even throw football comments in there. We'll answer them too at House_Hoosier on the Twitter, at House of Hoosier on Instagram and the phone line as well. Let's rewind a little bit and take a look at the vibes for after the Minnesota game from our sticker responses that we got on Instagram from Brooks White, our good friend Brooks White. His response to how was the Minnesota game was disgusted. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
All
Like I
right.
said, I had the sleeping mask. I was ready to go to sleep, trying to wake up from a nightmare. So I'm with you, Brooks. That one makes sense.
Colin McMahon of On Three Indiana, a classic of Colin McMahon, the frowny face.
That's
Agreed.
awesome. That's yeah, that one's good.
And then this one's a bit more authoritative. Oscar Eggold says, "Hold that L," followed by frauds.
You know, if you're Indiana, you have to take it on the chin. They were ranked 22nd in the country, so people can call you frauds for losing to Minnesota. You're Indiana basketball, haven't lost to them in 8 years. You can be called that. However, in response, here are some March Madness teams last year that also lost to bad teams and ended up having pretty good seasons. Maryland, they're a 4 seed last year. They lost to Ken Palm 104 Washington at home. Yikes. Texas Tech lost to St. Joe's last year. UCLA lost to Minnesota at home. Louisville lost to Georgia Tech last year on the road. And UConn lost to Ken Palm 204 Seton Hall by 20 points. Take a chill. It stinks. You're Indiana basketball. You don't want to lose to Minnesota. It feels like a lot less last year, a lot like last year in years past. It's okay. Let's just see how it goes. I'm trying to be optimistic the best way that I can, and I hope it's coming through like that because it's frustrating. I get it, but it's okay. One loss does not make your entire season. There's only been one undefeated national champion, and that was Indiana, but it hasn't happened for a reason. Losses are supposed to happen. So,
Noah Gerkey with the official Gerk AI insights and analysis. Thank you very much.
of
The
course,
ruling from Gerk AI is to stay optimistic.
at least for now, we'll see what happens. At least for now, let's stay optimistic.
Let us know all your thoughts from the Minnesota game or the upcoming Louisville game on our socials. Again, it's House_Hoosier on Twitter, House of Hoosier on Instagram, and you can leave a voicemail at our phone line as well. We'll catch you after the Louisville game. Indiana will tip against Louisville in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday to kick off an all-time day for Indiana Athletics. Big Ten Championship game kicking off at 8:17 p.m., just 6 hours and 2 minutes after the basketball tip. We'll be at both, and we are excited to break them all down afterwards. So we'll see you after the Louisville basketball game on probably Sunday, maybe Monday. We'll catch you then. For Noah, I'm Ian. That's been another episode